Brandon Benefield, Gerard Bonner, and Diana Michelle.
What's going on, everybody? It's that time of the week. It's time for your favorite podcast, SHW. This is our wrestling. B-double Brandon Benefield, the great GB Gerard Bonner, and the beautiful Diana Michelle. We are V3, and we are back after an insane SHW62. I'm still buzzing from it. How about you guys? What an amazing show. Holy cow.
Of course. I mean, there were so many surprises and so much going on. And
look over her head.
Yeah.
Like, oh, there it is.
I am Tony'd out today, y'all. I am Tony'd out. Still high on that whole deal. And we'll get into it, but
yeah.
Yes, all the emotions, all the love, all of the Tony Schiavone was in the house.
Other than that, how's your week, GB? You doing good?
You know what? This week has been it's really been coming together. Had some cool things happen like in the middle of the week that I went, oh, okay. So yeah, I think it's especially off the heels of a crazy, I keep asking myself, is it May or is it October?
Right.
Okay.
Because this felt like still here.
Yeah.
And we'll get into it, but it was massive. It was massive.
Yeah. So as we tend to do after every big show, we have a recap. So we're going to recap it for you guys real quick. And then we're going to touch on these big surprises that shocked us all. Like, people assume that we know what's going to happen or that we know what's going on. These things were blowing our minds just as much as the crowd, the capacity crowd, by the way. Thank you all for showing up to the Action Building. What an amazing crowd it was. But we did know. Yeah, it was great. And we did know that Paul Walter Hauser was going to be in the house, was our guest matchmaker, and put together an absolutely stacked card. And and then we got to see him compete later in the night. Of course, we'll get into it, but we weren't really sure if he was going to get there in time. So before we get to that, let's talk about the first match. First match of the night, we kicked things off with the Jake the Snake Legacy Championship. The reign of Hollywood started at SHW62, and it was his first title defense against the returning body positive Cody Fluffman. Diana, I know you have some thoughts on this match.
I was excited. I still kind of am excited. It's always good to see Cody Fluffman in the house. Everybody loves him. He brings such energy into the place. He's amazing. Honestly, he's amazing. And yes, I was trekking about Steamroller rolling down Hollywood Boulevard, taking the title away, but unfortunately it did stop short of Hollywood Hunter James' star on the walk. So he didn't come away with a victory, but it was still an amazing match, and there was some shenanigans.
We thought there might be
shenanigans, of course.
Yeah. The thing about these shenanigans with Hunter James is you never really know where they're coming from. The things that we saw with Chip Day were all connected to Tristan Michaels. I do that every time. Tristan Michaels. It's in my head. I don't know why I don't know. Sorry, Tristan. I do know your last name is Michaels. Forgive me. But yeah, you never really know where the distractions are going to come from. And I was so locked into this match that I completely forgot that Lev and the Warden and All Things Faithful were in the building. And I thought that they would be so focused on their impending tag team title match that they would leave Fluffman alone. But I thought wrong. They came out distracted. Fluffman cost him the championship. And ultimately, that wouldn't bode well for them either. But that's another discussion for a little bit later. Crazy match. Great way to kick off the show.
Yeah, we'll touch on it here in a few minutes. But Fluffman was able to come back a little later, get a little measure of revenge. But before we got there, of course, we were going to have a coin toss, which we had the big main event War Chamber, right? And we had to figure out which team was going to get the advantage, meaning which team would be able to have a 2-on-1 or a 3-on-2 at certain points in the matchup. So which team was going to have that advantage? We were going to have a coin toss. Our general manager comes out, Gary Lamb. He brings out Todd Sexton representing the end game, Murder One representing the hierarchy, and much to everyone's surprise, but especially that lady right there, Diana Michelle, we were informed that we had a special guest in the house, and he would be our guest coin flipper, as it were. And yeah, Gary leaned over, whispered, tell us, first of all, you explain it from your point of view, Diana, because we were just watching from the booth, and it was just, we were grinning ear to ear, seeing how excited you were. So kind of give us your experience.
First of all, it was kind of throwing me off because I was getting complimented by Gary. I mean, he said he missed me the month before. Thank you guys for missing me. You know, I missed you guys, missed being there. And he said I was the best announcer. And, you know, of course, 4-time announcer of the year. But, you know, to have Gary say it aloud over the mic was like, what? What's going on? Is he drinking? What's going on? But then he's like, we have somebody that you are going to love. I'm like, well, what in the world?
Yeah.
Who in the world do you even know that I love, honestly? Or do you listen to me? Because do you? But when he whispered in my ear, he said, Tony Schiavone is backstage. I about lost it. And then he's supposed to now announce him to the ring. Well, hold on, because I have to get my composure because I'm about to do this huge thing. I'm about to announce Tony Schiavone, the Tony Schiavone, out to who gets to do that? Who gets rare to announce this legend out to the ring for anything? For anything. I mean,
true.
You want him to introduce you, but I got to introduce him. That's huge. So I did it, and I have to work on this because I squealed a little bit trying to get it out. I was so excited, but Tony Schiavone was in the house, guys. He was in the house. He came out with all his glory and his.
It was awesome because
I have watched that video a million times.
And I was just about to say, if you have not seen it, it's on social media. That was one of the first videos from the event that got put out this past week. And it was just, you can feel it in the video. You can hear the crowd pop because they don't know they don't know who you're about to say. We didn't know who you're about to say. Of course, we've all spent some time with him and kind of become good friends with him. And so it was cool to see him come out. And then he acknowledged Gerard and I over there, came and shook our hands. And it was just like, this is really cool. Because we never expected to see. We thought maybe he might show up to like watch a show or come backstage and hang out. Yeah. But to be, and he's done that in the past, a few, 2-3 years ago. And to do it to where he's actually a part of the show and coming out on the stage and you introducing him and just the crowd going crazy.
There was no stairs on the side that he came out on, right? Yeah. So I'm like, I'm not going to have this man climb the apron and crawl to the ring. So I had to get out and walk him around to the stairs just because.
Here's the thing, though, and I even said this on commentary. I think he knew what he was doing. He was hoping you would come escort him around the ring, kind of flaunting in front of the fans.
He didn't have to do anything for that. I was going to do it regardless. I was just like, whatever. This is Tony Schiavone, and I'm going to have this moment. I love this man. I love this man. I mean, y'all know.
Oh, yeah.
But those who don't know me, now you know. I freaking love this man.
Yeah.
He is special.
I will say, one of the things that Gary Lamb has said regularly is that, wrestling and Southern Honor is about moments. And what's so intriguing is we often are the ones telling the stories or helping to create moments for you as fans. It's not every day that we get to have our own moments.
Yeah.
So what's so cool is, it's so funny. I think everybody in the wrestling world at this point knows the three of us in terms of our bond is very, very authentic. It is very much what you see is what you get. And the happiness that I know Brandon and I had in watching this moment happen, and then, knowing how you feel about it. And it's just like, you get to have this moment. That is one of the things that I think is so awesome because we don't always get to have those dream moments happen for us while we are doing what we're doing, So I think that is what is so awesome. And again, that's why we love this business, because it's not just, we love creating moments for you as fans, But the idea that we get to have these moments, and I love Diana so much, and I think back to a couple of Still Here's before when she got to announce the Rock and Roll Express.
Woo, this is right up there.
But this is what I'm saying is, getting to have these kinds of moments. I know over time we both have called matches for people that we thought we'd never ever really get to work with, and it's like, whoa, we got to call their match. Like, that's really crazy. Rock and Roll Express being one of those teams. So seeing this kind of moment is super special, and then having it captured so that it's something that you never, ever forget. It never gets old. You never lose the footage. This is awesome. And again, that's one of the things that makes Southern Honor what it is, and it makes wrestling what it is. It's these kinds of moments. So I'm glad we got to be there live for it. It was
yes, amazing. There's only a handful of things that could be this big to me. I mean, Rock and Roll Express, of course. Tony Schiavone.
There's really only one left for you. There's only one left.
Dang, man.
And you're 2 for 2, so
that's it. Sting is my John Bon Jovi. So if I ever get to meet John Bon Jovi, it might be just as good. But that's it. Rock and roll, Tony, Sting, and John. Yeah. I'm done.
Can I just say, let me die. And I'm gonna jump ahead real quick here, but because you brought up the icon Sting, since last Friday, I have been kicking myself because as soon as Paul Walter Hauser came out and we saw the jersey he was wearing and it said Stingray on the back, I so after the fact thought, oh, I should have said, well, with Tony in the house, dare I say, it's Sting.
Ray. Yes.
But I didn't think about it until later.
I wanted to. The timing was never good. When he came out, it was just like, Paul Walter Hauser.
It would have been perfect because with Tony being there, it was just like, that would have been great. Anyway, coulda, woulda, shoulda. But yes, what an amazing moment. Tony Schiavone comes out. We say it every single show. You never know who might show up through the doors. Yeah, we never know. It's crazy. And so, of course, he jumps in the ring for the coin toss. Todd Sexton calls heads. It turns out it's heads. The end game gets the advantage. One thing, by the way, I just talked about Paul Walter Hauser, but one thing that Todd Sexton mentioned while he was in the ring was that he had it on good authority that Paul Walter Hauser was still on set in Atlanta shooting a movie, and he wasn't even going to be there tonight. There was all this promotion that he was going to come to the show, and according to Todd Sexton, no, he's not going to make it. So the hierarchy's still going to be a man short after they had beat down Chip Day. Chip Day wasn't going to make it. But here's the thing. Much like we said about Gary, we don't always necessarily believe what comes out of his mouth. And so we were like, no, wait a second. Is what Todd Sexton is saying here true, or is he just trying to play some mind games? I think Todd Sexton thought he was telling the truth.
Yeah.
And we'll get to this later when we get to the main event. And the only reason I say it is because you saw the reaction on his face when PWH actually showed up. So anyways, we'll get there. I'm fast forwarding a little bit. But yes, so the end game wins the coin toss. They're going to have the advantage when it came time for the main event. After that, Diana, what was the next matchup we had following
Rob
that?
Killjoy.
That's right.
Darian Bankston. Now, this match, holy crap, everything we thought it would be and more. Am I right?
Yeah.
Gee, take this. I know you got things to say.
This one was crazy and arguably a candidate for match of the night. Of course, we had War Chamber there, so we had 2 rings, and usually a match was happening in one ring or the other. This was one of those matches that actually spilled across 2 rings, which was crazy. Seeing Darian Bankston, who we are fans of, only a second appearance in SHW. Of course, Rob Killjoy, a hardened veteran who's been doing this for over 16 years, kind of the gatekeeper here at Southern Honor. What was going to give? And it was 2 guys who seemingly loved the rules until at one point Darian Bankston stopped loving the rules. Yeah. And that was a shocker to me because I've never seen that side of him. And both of them pulled out some moves that I hadn't seen before. A springboard leg drop into the other ring. Yeah. Crazy. Right. Then there's one
double
move
spring.
Yeah, like there's one move Darian did. I still can't figure out what it is. It was crazy. What a match. It's everything we thought it would be and more.
Yeah, it was very cool. And you talked about the double springboard leg drop. how much airtime Rob Killjoy got. Now, I talked to Rob earlier this week because he went out of his way to go ahead and get that clip because he wanted to post it on the socials. And so a lot of people were talking about that. And I was talking to him about it, and he said, my butt still hurts. And this is like almost a full week later.
I believe it.
And I told him, I said, I bet because of how high you got. I mean, he's come off the ropes with a leg drop before. He's done a leg drop, a standing leg drop in the ring. But to come off double springboard into the second ring and the height that he got, I can only imagine. You saw it in the video, like as soon as he landed, he's like, oh, and it was one of those like, was it worth it? Like, I don't know. He was probably thinking right after he did it, like it looked awesome, but man, that hurt.
There's a little give in those rings. I mean, we'll be honest, I walk on them. It's not a trampoline by any means. It's not even really spongy, but you know, those boards do move a little, but not enough to give any kind of comfort. No. But can we just talk about the athleticism of these guys?
Yeah. It's
incredible. Holy crap. It is amazing. There's no way I could have just jumped up on a top rope and just bounced to the next one.
Right.
Hoping that my feet were going to catch.
Right.
That's insane to me. But
you only get one shot to do that. Like,
right, because if you miss it,
we're live.
And what people didn't consider too is there was like space between the two rings. Yeah. So if you didn't get that right and you landed there, you were going to be in big trouble. If you overshot it. Yeah. So again, just incredible. Absolutely incredible.
But amazing match. Totally amazing match. That's one I'm really waiting to see back on IWTV. I'm ready for this show to come out. Let's go, Dylan.
And we talked about before the show how Paul Walter Hauser had done some training. He's been in some previous wrestling matches on his own, and he did a lot of training with Darian Bankston. So him being the matchmaker made it a point to say, I want this guy back in SHW. And so he was very instrumental in bringing Darian back to the show. And to your point earlier, GB, you kind of touched on it. It started out, they were doing a handshake in the ring to start the match and like good sportsmanship, two guys that were doing the right thing. Then all of a sudden, it was like midway through the match, all of a sudden Darian starts jawing to the crowd and starts, trying to high five and then moving his hand out of the way from the kids when trying to high five. I'm like, wait, what happened here? It's like some sort of switch flipped, and Darian just kind of, I don't know if it was like, what I'm doing right now isn't going to work against this guy, so I need to change up my game plan. And he did it mid-match, and it almost worked a couple of times. But in the end, the Duck Man hit the Duck Driver and was able to put away Bankston. But again, it was one of those matches. It could have been any guy's match the whole time.
I say run it back. Let's do it again.
Absolutely.
I'm here for it.
Let's do it. Let's do it again next month.
Yeah.
Why not?
I mean, really, why not? Let's do it again.
Why not? What was
Paul can talk to Jake and he can say, look, let's bring Darian back. I mean,
well, Jake was watching. Because we'll find out later in the night. He started texting me as stuff was going on. But what do we have coming up next, Diana?
Oh, Kyle versus Jaden.
So here's where we had the unfortunate surprise. Again, we said it was a night of surprises, right? We had no idea Matt Griffin was going to be in the building. Matt Griffin was in the building. All of a sudden, we hear his music. We look on this video screen.
You must have said his name one more time before the show started.
You actually mentioned it to him, GB, when he sat down. He said, you started to say it, and you said, oh, I don't know if we should tell you what we talked about on the pre-show. And he's like, go ahead. What'd you say? And he told him, it's like, yeah, you're like Beetlejuice. We try not to say your name too many times.
Yeah.
But yeah, then I thought maybe he was just coming out to, get in the ring and start running his mouth and cut a promo or something. But instead, flask in hand, makes his way over and sits next to us, and he's going to join us on commentary for this matchup. Now, we had known ahead of time that Jaden Newman, being a big guy down there at Action Wrestling, I guess you could say one of Matt Griffin's guys, and that Kyle Matthews had been having issues with guys from Action Wrestling over the last few months. And here we go again. But can Kyle finally get past him? And I'm happy to say he represented SHW well and was able to pull out the W there in that match. But you talk about great matches. There's another one that was just absolutely incredible. Now, GB, I know you want to touch on this match, but also touch on how much of a headache it was having that chucklehead sitting next to us the whole time.
Right next to me, and his flask, which was certainly filled with some substance.
Yeah.
That was not water. Yeah, you know. Now he did his best to somewhat be impartial, and I say somewhat, but you know, it was interesting, and I pointed out to him on commentary. I said, usually when you're here with your action guys, if you're down there with them in the ring, they will win because you find some nefarious means. He felt like Jaden didn't need his assistance, and perhaps he was wrong.
Yeah. Perhaps had he gone to ringside.
Let me tell you what I think. I think he was too worried about trying to put over the wall to worry about trying to help this guy Jaden.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of wall talk, but
that's true.
We won't get into that right now.
Well, we'll have to get into it a little bit, because what happened immediately following the match, which is what we were afraid of, was he grabbed a microphone, went down to the ring, and you know, called out Hunter James. They got their eyes on that Jake the Snake Legacy Championship.
They do.
And you know, Griffin wants one of his guys, specifically the Wall, to get a shot at that title. Meanwhile, Kyle Matthews is still in the ring, waving his hands like, "Hey, I'm right here. I just won a match.
Right.
Like, if anybody should get a shot, it should be me." So he's waving his arms. And then the Duckman. We talked about Rob Killjoy earlier in the night, how he had been undefeated thus far this year.
Well deserved.
So, yeah, if anybody deserves a shot, he should get a shot. And I guess he felt the same way, because then he comes walking out and throwing his hat in the ring. Not literally, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
He wasn't wearing a hat.
His bill. He's throwing his bill.
He threw his bill in the ring. There you go.
There it is.
And then, of course, as tends to happen from time to time, Jake the Snake, he's got eyes and ears everywhere. So even though he's not in the building physically, he is still keeping tabs on the show, and saw what was going down and shot me the text and said, all right, it's going to be a fatal four-way for the JTS Legacy Championship coming up June 7th at SHW63. So we already know that huge match is on tab for the next show. But yeah, that's not something I saw coming. I mean, we knew Kyle was going to have a great match with Jaden. I did not expect all the stuff to unfold after the fact, but now I'm pretty excited.
How interesting it would be to have the shenanigans of Tristan Michaels versus Matt Griffin's shenanigans. Because you know they're both good at doing their thing, but now.
But here's what's interesting. I don't know if you caught what Matt said at the very end. He said, well, you know what? I'm so confident in the Wall.
He's not going to be there.
I'm going to go on vacation, and I'm not even going to be here next month.
That's right.
Which kind of really shocked us, because I'm like, now, wait a second. He has always been here when one of the action guys has been in the building.
Right.
So I don't know if that bodes too well. Now, the Wall's a big dude. We saw what he did to Cruel that one time, and nobody else has ever done that to Cruel. But I don't know how his chances are at this point, but
we will certainly see. We'll certainly see. Should be quite the night coming up on June the 7th.
But next up on the card, Diana, what you got?
Let's see. We have the tag team title match. We had another visitor on commentary, did you not?
Well, what was interesting is he was the guy who claims to own and hold the titles. He was claiming them for himself, which to his point, he did make the cover in the last match to win the titles as grappler number 3. And I'm talking about our general manager, Gary Lamb. But what was interesting is he was the one holding the titles, and the other grapplers were wanting the titles. They want to hold the titles.
I mean,
their titles.
When you have a title match and you're the title holders, you get to walk to the ring with your titles.
You would think.
And hold them above your head. And the referee couldn't even hold them and show the other team.
It's a very weird situation going on that I don't think we've heard the last of. But yes, very strange. And so, of course, Warden and Lev were the two that were taking on Grappler 1 and Grappler 2. And you had Chainmail there. You had, was Seabolt down there? I mean, they had the whole posse. Yeah, the whole posse for the Grapplers was there. And then, of course, Gary as the Grappler number 3. Unmasked the other night. But, we had the, I don't know. I don't guess it was as bad as having Matt Griffin on commentary. But, yeah, he was, he has some things to say. And it was, what's the saying? Gary's gonna Gary. So yeah,
Gary's Gary.
you'll see when you see it on IWTV. Gary was definitely Garying.
It's a different level of Gary though, because Gary holding a championship and trying to lay claim to that championship. That's what was so interesting to me about this. We've seen Gary want to fight and get his company back and all of the other things, but I've never seen Gary hold on to a championship like this.
Yeah.
You know, the champion, like you said, Diana, the championships never were around the waist of the champions. The referee couldn't hold them up, couldn't reward them back to the champions when the match was over because Gary had them. And yeah, I guess we should talk about how this match ended in an unpredictable way, because as they say, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And that's kind of what we saw here with Lev and All Things Faithful having seeds that they sowed sprout up right there during that show.
Next to us, literally next to us
in a very scary place, as the latest member there of what do they call themselves? Lev's Faithful. That's what they're called.
Faithful.
Right? Yeah. It wasn't good. And tell me his name again.
Well, so Grayson Pierce.
Grayson Pierce.
Not Grayson Waller.
Grayson Pierce, no Waller. Yeah, he found himself in the clutches of one Fluffman, who normally is a very happy-go-lucky guy, but Fluffman dragged Pierce out and threatened to powerbomb him through our table. And that got the attention there of Lev. And he was very close.
Yeah.
He was way too close. And he was seeing red.
Yeah.
And so it distracted Lev long enough for the grapplers to hit a finish and retain the championship.
And the Warden actually took off. The Warden ran after Fluff to the back, and Lev was left on his own. And that's, and then grapplers capitalized.
Can we say that the Warden did not prove to be faithful?
It's interesting because I guess you could argue that he was faithful to Grayson.
Right.
He was trying to protect Grayson, but
here it was, I am my brother's keeper. And
yeah.
So,
but meanwhile, he left Lev high and dry. I guess inadvertently. But you got to realize, and again, we talked about them being a young tag team. They haven't teamed together much.
Still learning.
And so, you're thinking to yourself, in this case, in a title match, sorry, Grayson, you're on your own. This is a title match. I need to focus.
Yeah.
And again, maybe you live and learn, and they're a young team, and maybe they'll get another shot down the road.
Live and learn.
Hey.
See what you did there. Well,
folks, he's a dad. He's allowed to have some dad jokes. It's okay.
It's all good.
He gets a pass.
It's all good. Thank you.
But so another thing that was interesting after the match, you talked about how Gary wouldn't let go of those title belts. And I don't know if this will make it onto what you see on IWTV. It might. I don't know yet.
Yeah.
But they were played out to Gary's music. And as the grapplers got to the stage next to us, which we don't run the music booth is on the other side of the room up against that wall in the booth, the audio booth. And they come over to us and they're yelling at us, why aren't you playing our music? We just won the match. Play our music. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. We don't control the music, and it's Gary's building. It's Gary's company, and take it up with him. He's the one holding your title belts. So anyways, I don't know if that'll make it on the show that you see on IWTV, but there's your little inside nugget.
Happy.
Yeah, a little inside baseball that happened after the match.
But also after the match, he did walk down to the ring with the title belts and handed them to the grapplers. The other grapplers 1 and grappler 2, since he's grappler 3. He did hand them to them, and then what happened? Out of nowhere, Exotic Youth comes out of nowhere.
That part. Yeah.
And attacks Gary.
Oh, yeah.
I almost forgot about that. Yeah.
I almost did too.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. A lot happened that night.
A lot happened.
A lot happened that night. You're right.
What I noticed was Gary was getting the boots put to him, but the grapplers 1 and 2 were just kind of took off and walked away.
And GB pointed that out on commentary. He's like, well, they're not even helping Gary here. And meanwhile, it was a couple of guys from the roster
It took Fluff
and
Right.
Dave Stage.
and Dave
Right.
Stage
Yeah. With a bat in hand.
with a bat hand. Which, hey Dave, he
Yeah.
was there. Where did he come from?
Mhm.
Hey, well, you know
That's
what?
a great question.
He's backstage.
You know?
You
Question.
never know when you might be needed. So,
Right. He's just
Right.
there.
yeah.
What's up, Dave?
And
Which
I
is
seen him
awesome.
earlier in the night, but I didn't expect to see him coming out with a bat and running off Exotic Youth because honestly, we thought Exotic Youth were done.
Was
we thought
gone.
we thought we
Yeah.
were done with the Exotic Youth problem in SHW.
Right.
I mean,
And
Bryce is out. We had Zach and Pep come in, like Boots to Gary, and
yeah,
Don't know where they came from. Don't know where
don't know
they
where he came
went.
from.
They just appeared. So,
yeah.
Just
wild.
yeah,
Been a wild
Absolutely
night. It was a wild night
Yeah,
for sure.
it was. But obviously, we are not done with the Exotic Youth problem. So who knows what's
No.
going to happen from here?
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Well, from there, Diana.
From there, GB.
This is
You
another
had your
video.
basket ready.
This is another video that's on the
You have
socials.
got to see it. I wish
that-
we could just play it right now, so we can just. Hyena Hera comes out, you know, she's in all her bliss and glory, and she's doing her thing, and then the Queen's music hits, and before she even makes scene, GB's got his basket of rose petals and laying on at her feet, and hail the Queen.
Well, look,
Oh,
on
yeah.
this very podcast a couple of weeks ago, Diana Michelle said, "You know what? I'm gonna buy a bunch of those rose petals. I'm gonna bring them in a basket, and GB, you should lay them at her feet, a la Coming to America." And it was
beautiful. It was perfect.
And people might have doubted, oh, they're just joking around on the podcast. No, folks.
I don't think she knew what was going on.
No.
I don't think she expected it all.
GB, I don't think you've seen it yet, but check your phone and look at she comments on the video.
Does she?
Is that right? That I thought I saw something about that.
She commented directly to you on the video.
This is listen, I told you all that I proudly serve at the pleasure of the Queen. So much so I came prepared.
Okay.
I came prepared because I knew we would talk about our Queen. And so
beautiful shirt.
We proudly wear the apparel of the queendom here on the show. It was an honor and a privilege to serve at the pleasure of the Queen. And she appreciated it clearly.
Yeah.
She enjoyed it. I had to reprimand a few people who tried to come and take her flowers. No. You can get your own flowers in your own queendom. But for this queendom,
you frightened people.
Hey,
they were.
Hey, listen, you don't touch
them.
When you go to England.
Those children were terrified.
Those flowers.
Those children were in tears.
They messed around and found out you don't mess with the Queen's flowers. Okay, you don't mess with those flowers. Leave her flowers alone. Get your own flowers. April showers, you can get your flowers later in May. Okay,
those are
not
sacred
hers.
petals.
They are sacred. They were flown in directly from Zamunda.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah.
It took a lot of work to get them here.
It was hard. I'm telling you.
It was very hard to get them here.
Yeah.
So we got them here. They were expressly for her. And I believe she greatly appreciated them.
But I think one of my favorite parts was that, she did not expect it at all.
Did not.
But one of my favorite parts, though, was that she ended up grabbing a handful and kind of throwing them back at you. I was like,
she threw them in the air, and I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, but I think she was showing appreciation to you for.
Well,
she was trying to lay the path for her to walk, and she was like, let them fly.
Listen, I did not want her feet to touch the ground. I wanted them to only touch the petals. But, whatever she wants, she gets because she's the queen of the queendom.
Well, there you go.
She proved that this is still her space.
And I will say, we do need to shout out Hyena Hera. She made her debut the other night.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Put up a great fight. But I think a lot of us deep down kind of knew that when the Queen's making her big return, there was no way she was going to leave the building without a win. But all the props in the world to Hyena. She looked great. We've called plenty of her matches. We've watched her progress all the way through the Nightmare Factory from her very first day in professional wrestling all the way to where she is now. And she's made waves all over the Southeast. You may have even seen her on TV a time or two.
You may have.
But anyways, I hope to see Hyena back.
Definitely.
But the other night, it was not her night. It was the Queen's night. And Reka Tahaka was back in a big way at SHW62.
And I just want to remind everyone, all hail.
You better recognize
there you
all
go.
hail.
All hail.
I absolutely love that video. I love it. Thank you to Corey Tatum for getting that video we had. The one we had.
Oh, yeah. So we
Even
saw,
though he's retired, he did do due diligence.
So we got the crowd footage. Yes. But then also the one that Impact posted on Instagram. That's the one I'm talking about. Read that one after we're done, GB.
I'll have to check that out.
Does that take us to Gunner and Sal?
That takes us to Gunner and Sal.
Okay. So we talked about a night full of surprises. We're expecting Gunner and Sal to be the next match. All of a sudden, we hear the music of one half of the Infantry, the one and only Bad News and Tattoos, Carly Bravo. And we're looking around going, well, we know the music, but is he here?
Right.
And if he is here, why is he here? But sure enough, he was here. He was hype coming out. The crowd was going nuts for him. He got in the ring, hugged Diana. Just the crowd's going crazy. And then he makes his way back up to us and he said, hey, do you mind if I join you guys? Of course. We're not going to say no to Carly. We're day ones with Carly. I mean, come on. So, then he ends up joining us on commentary for this match between Sal Rinauro and Gunnar Miller. Sal Rinauro makes his way out on the stage, and the first thing he does, you just talked about people not taking those rose petals. He gets a handful and puts them right in his mouth.
Sure does.
But he's not all there, guys. I mean, really,
that's
his
why
music
I didn't
by
mess with
itself.
Him. That's why I didn't mess with him.
His music by itself was like crazy. The California Dreamin' with no like music, just the singing was creepy.
A little bit.
It was creepy. And how he made his way to the other ring, I guess you would say, gets in the first ring and just steamrolls himself.
That's what GB called it on commentary.
All the way across. Steamrolled himself.
2 rings.
Yeah. And then sits quietly.
He's a different kind of cat, man.
He is.
Yeah.
He's a different kind of cat.
You gotta love the guy. You gotta pay attention.
Our pal Sal, you never know. Unpredictable is what we kept calling him the other night. And that's what I said about Gunner's got to be careful here. I know he's got his eyes kind of set on Judias and getting back at that world champion or the Southern Honor Championship, but you can't take your eye off the ball here with Sal Rinauro.
Right.
Of course, as it turned out, he did just fine handling himself. It didn't take very long. It was record time, I believe.
Less than a minute, maybe?
Yeah.
Is that about right?
I think it was a belly-to-belly. Quick. Oh, there was a slap to the face from Sal, and then a quick belly-to-belly overhead throw from Gunner, and then a spear from Gunner, and then a jackhammer from Gunner, and then a 1-2-3 from our official. And
that's how it went.
So then Gunner gets on the mic, and we just talked about Judias. Like, he's got his eye on Judias. He straight up calls out the Southern Honor champion. And just like Jake occasionally will text me, apparently he's got Jake on speed dial as well, because he said he'd already talked to our matchmaker, and Jake has already made it official for SHW63. So that's 2 championship matches we already know about going into June 7th. The JTS title will be on the line in a fatal 4-way match, and the SHW title will be on the line. Judias defending against Gunnar Miller, and it's been nearly a year. Has it been just
over? It's been over
almost?
A year.
Over a year.
Over a year.
That Gunnar lost that title to Judias when Todd Sexton was the official and stopped his 3 count. And you've seen
he let his true colors be known.
Exactly. And you've seen what has happened since. The end game cometh, and it's been a hectic year ever since.
It has.
But yeah. So Gunnar, let us know.
Has he had since
I believe it's been 7 or 8.
Okay.
7 or 8.
Yeah. But before we get to what happened with Sal after that, your thoughts on what transpired to that point?
It was quick.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was quick. It was. I think Gunnar that's his focus. We've always wondered exactly where is Gunnar's focus. He clearly made it known he wants that title back. I'm not going to be the one to stand in front of that freight train. No,
No.
sir. I say let him go. Let him have it. Let him do it.
Yeah.
Tear the house down.
You have been, Diana, the person who really has been able to notice when Gunner is not focused. You were really kind of the first one to bring that to our attention. And I think about that often. You know, the most focused we really ever saw him was when he first made his return. And that's when he was beating people in 2 minutes or less, you know? And
Right.
he returned to that form when it came to Sal last Friday. That told us an awful lot about where his head was at. Then he followed that, of course, by talking about his aspirations to be champion. If I'm Judias, I'm very concerned right now because this is the Gunner that won the championship. This is the Gunner that made his way to becoming #1 contender and all of those things. This is the Gunner that retired the first time Corey Hollis. So I think this is going to get very interesting, and we've got an interesting road to June the 7th, which could be a history-making night.
Yeah, absolutely. And just when we think that match is over and done with, Sal, still laying in the ring, recovering from the jackhammer, grabs a microphone. And it's interesting because he gets a mic and all you hear is, because he just got speared and took the jackhammer. And I was like, why is he even trying to talk right now? But for some reason, he had his sights set on our guested commentary, and he talked for a good while. and it was just like, what is gotten into this guy? And he had Carly on his mind, and Carly was sitting there going like, really? Are we really going to do this?
Right.
And GB, I'll let you take it from there. But it was like, what is happening?
Yeah, he said some rather disparaging things to Carly Bravo. And, you know, I just was like, man, let Carly live. Carly's chilling. But Carly said, I had all I can stands and I can't stands no more. Carly went to the ring. And of course, as he went to the ring, Sal would leave the ring.
Yeah.
But then we got our next surprise where Carly did not come alone.
Of course
because while we have one guy who's the people's captain, the other one is the cap that has no cap. And that, of course, is the captain, Sean Dean, who surprised us all, showed up to be there at the side of Carly Bravo, and they collectively put the boots to our pal Sal. And somehow it turned into a matchup quickly. A referee showed up, and there was a 3 count. Carly gets the big win, all in a day's work.
Yeah, Sal.
That's
Yeah, Sal making records left and right. Not only losing in record time, but then losing 2 matches in one night. And I want to say that's only happened a small amount of times.
Very few.
The very first show we ever had, AC Mack lost twice in one night. He lost in the opening match to Jordan Kingsley, and then he lost very quickly to Raven. Very shortly thereafter, all in the same night.
Wow.
And I'm trying to remember, there may be another time or two in there, but that's one for sure I remember. And then Sal the other night losing twice back to back, which was just crazy. And then we were like, well, I mean, he asked for it. Like, what was he thinking?
He did.
Or was he not thinking?
Fight with the infantry.
And
because once you talk about one, you're gonna talk about the other.
Yeah. And you got to remember back to a few months ago, the seeming split between Happy Madness. We haven't seen Sunny Days since. And I don't know if that is still what's going on in his head, and that's got him totally messed up over the last couple of months, but something's going on, and we've already joked about it. Well, yeah, and we've always kind of joked about it. His head is a scary place to even want to be.
It is.
So I don't really know if I want to know.
Loose and the hinges are off. So now it's what's going on.
Well, that brings us to the main event. Am I correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so the main event, War Chamber, followed that. It was going to be 4-on-4 in game versus Hierarchy. We still hadn't heard about if Paul Walter Hauser was there. Todd Sexton earlier in the night said he wasn't going to make it because he was still on the movie set down in Atlanta. And a little differently than we've done in the past War Chambers, the guys didn't come out individually. So the end game comes out on the stage all together, which, by the way, that entrance, I mean, that was chill inducing for us because we're right there on the stage, and they didn't just come out and walk down the ramp. They came up and just stood on the stage, And I was like,
Right.
I hope they're not going to stay there. Like, please,
Right.
please go.
Please.
And so the idea being that they were all going to come out together and then enter individually once the match started. So they came out. Same thing with the end game. The end game comes out. Joe Black's pushing a cart full of plunder, all kinds
Man.
of weapons and toys in
He
there.
brought the Dark City tactics with him.
Yeah, and then GB pointed out right away and said, but you notice there's only 3 of them. Paul Walter Hauser isn't here.
Right.
So then we're concerned because we already knew from the coin flip from Tony Schiavone, Endgame was already going to have the advantage there. And if a 4th member of the hierarchy doesn't show up, then it's not going to be a good night for the hierarchy. But anyways, I'll let you guys kind of take it from there as your thoughts as one by one, each member of each team entered the ring, and it was everything you would expect from a war chamber.
Let's see who started. Kenway.
Kenway. And it was going to be Todd.
Would be Todd.
Yeah.
He acted it. I even called it out.
Yeah.
But then he snuck his little behind out, and then Nick Halen started it out. It was a good 5 minutes. It was a good first 5 minutes of the match. It really was.
Yeah.
Props to both guys. I mean, have we seen them wrestle?
It's a good question.
I don't think we've seen Nick Halen and Kenway go at it.
I don't think in singles.
That would be a good one. I think we need to see that.
Tag, but yeah.
Yeah, that'd be a good one. But then I don't remember who the second Murder or Joe. It was Joe. Joe was next for.
Yeah, it was Joe
Hierarchy
and CT Keys.
CT Keys.
Yeah.
Which that's another one-on-one. I think everybody's chomping at the bit to see.
Yeah.
It got bloody after that, I believe.
It did.
Because I mean, we're talking Pounce versus From Haiti with Love. I mean, that's
and that chop fest, which
oh my God.
And that's the thing people don't realize.
Can chop like that.
And those were thuds. Those were like the smacks that you normally hear because these guys' chests are just so thick. And you always hear some of the wrestlers talk about the thuds hurt even worse than the slaps. You know, it's like when it thuds like that, that's when you know it's like, ooh, that's straight muscle. That's
it's straight muscle.
But they were absorbing them because, like I said, they're just so thick.
Because they're so muscular and but geez, no, I'm telling you, nobody can chop like Joe. Nobody.
Nope.
That's powerful. That's powerful. Who is next for the end game? Was it?
Then it was Judas.
Murder
won.
Murder.
So Todd was the last one in. Yeah.
Of course.
And then Todd would be the last one in. And then the question was, would Paul Walter Hauser actually make it?
And for a while there, it was that 4-on-3 advantage, and it just was not looking good for the hierarchy. But then we saw that 30-second timer pop up on the screen, and we all wondered when it hit 0, will he arrive or is he not here? We didn't know. But luckily,
he eventually showed.
And that's another video that's on Instagram. If you check Impact Southern Honor Wrestling's Instagram page, and you can hear that crowd come alive for Paul Walter Hauser. What a cool moment to have this Golden Globe and Emmy Award winner in our building. Not only had he put together a stacked card, but then to be there competing in the main event. And we went crazy because he took his jacket off and he had the hierarchy jersey. And it was like, now that is cool with Stingray on the back.
I don't even care about the awards that he wins. That doesn't even impress me. But the whole fact that Stingray came out in black and gold was a freaking amazing to me.
Yeah.
If he'd had that Cobra Kai emblem right here, that would have been it. That would have been it. That made my night.
And then
he not only came out and did a thing, but he was impressive.
Good. Yeah.
Okay.
Very, very good.
Took out Todd Sexton, hit a sit-out power bomb on Nick Halen. I mean, did a Saito suplex on CT Keys. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't until I think Judas got in there, finally got him goozled up, that he kind of put a stop to it.
But he laid the boots on. He did the high kick in the face, and then it was crazy. But
it was wild.
Yeah, he did not give that. I was impressed. I was impressed.
It got wild, but if there was going to be a 4th man to come through in the clutch, Paul Walter Hauser was that guy. Yeah. And so huge showing for him, and it led to the end game losing, the hierarchy getting the win, a much-deserved win, as Todd Sexton would tap out. And that's how this thing ended. Brutal battle. The hierarchy, who can touch them right now?
Yeah.
They are incredible. They are absolutely incredible. And Paul Walter Hauser fit right in with that particular crew. Huge night for them.
Yeah.
And perhaps they're done with the end game. It kind of feels like they'll hashtag fight forever. But certainly this chapter seems to be over.
Yeah. And what was interesting, kind of like I mentioned before about the grapplers, after the cameras were kind of rolling on that match, they came up and were getting in our ears. Once the show ended, a lot of people didn't see this, I don't think, and I don't think it was on camera either. But Judias approached us at the. I mean, we had already taken our headsets off, like we weren't recording, like we were done. We thought. I'm not even GB. If you want to repeat, I'm not going to repeat what he said to us. But it was
nope.
It
I
was
trying
like
not to look him in the face.
Right. That was our whole thing. We were like, don't look up, don't look up, don't look. He was like just behind us, and he was kind of like leaning down and getting in our face, trying to talk his trash. And I'm not going to repeat it, but it was like, thank God I had my dark pants on because it was pretty frightening. And then I'm thinking like, dude, the show's over. Like, really? You're still messing with us? Come on, man. Like, just go to the back. Alone. Please leave us alone. Please. But not so much. But I will say this about Paul Walter Hauser. Again, can't put over enough. What a great guy he was. Got to talk to him backstage a little bit. Such a nice guy. This is after the show, obviously, because he didn't show up till the very end. But the other thing that was cool is because he showed up late, he didn't get to do the meet and greet before the show, which was the original plan. That guy stuck around after the show and met every single person, took pictures, signed autographs, and just stayed until the very last SHW fan left. And what a guy. I mean, it was super cool. So hope he comes back at some point. But, man, what a night that was, guys.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It was amazing. The whole night was amazing. I mean, we could go through it again and again and again with the highlights and everything, but
you'll want to
thank
make
God
sure
we have the
watch
videos
it.
and we have IWTV to be able to watch it back because it was one of my favorite shows.
Yeah.
I will say, I did miss my bad boy Chip Day, and he'll be back next month.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. But it was an amazing show. One of my favorites.
Incredible.
I think he's kind of bummed he missed it.
I know.
I saw him like liking stuff on, different posts and stuff like that. I was like, oh man, I wish he would have been there. But man, what a crazy night it was. And thank you again to all the fans that showed up to the Action Building the other night. It was amazing. What a great crowd. And like y'all said, as soon as this hits IWTV, we will let you know on the socials, and you're definitely going to want to go back and watch it. We do know that SHW63, the graphic, has been released on the socials. It's June 7th. And like we said, we've already heard 2 matches announced, 2 big title matches, the SHW Championship and the Snake Legacy Championship, both on the line. And we will be talking about all that and the upcoming announcements of the other matches as that date approaches. But I guess that's it, guys. What a wild show. I'm just still kind of exasperated at what an amazing show that was. Like I said, I've been buzzing all week about it. And so, it was a wild one. And let's do it again. Let's do it again in a couple weeks.
Let's do it again.
But until next week.
Oh, wait, one more thing, though. We didn't even mention Miss Britt Baker was in the house.
Oh, yeah.
We didn't even mention her. Thank her and Tony and Tony's daughter for coming and hanging out.
That's right. Yeah. DMD.
Also meeting with some fans and taking pictures and just being
It kind of became an impromptu meet and greet over there, during the intermission, because you had Tony and DMD and the Infantry all kind of over there, and the fans. Like, once it was funny because once it caught wind that they were over there, it's like you could just see the swarms. Like, whoop.
They were very, very good with
they were very accommodating, which was awesome. And I mean, obviously, when you're Britt Baker, you got to kind of know that if you're in a crowd, people are going to want to come up and meet you. And but she was very cool. Tony, of course, was very accommodating, as were Carly and Sean Dean. So, but what a night! Yeah, good point, Diana. Forgot about that. Anyways. I'm wore out just reliving it, guys.
I know.
But we will be back here on the podcast next week to get us ready and hyped up for the next show. So until then, this has been
SHW.
This is our wrestling.
Boom.